The ship came down from the sky on a Tuesday morning, was standing in front of his classroom, explaining the laws of motion to 30 bored teenagers when the windows turned white. The light was so bright that he thought a bomb had gone off. He shouted for his students to get under their desks. Then the ceiling disappeared. Not collapsed, not broken, it simply stopped existing. He looked up and saw something that his mind refused to accept. A ship hung in the air above the school. It was bigger than the entire neighborhood. Its surface was black and smooth like glass, and strange symbols glowed along its edges in colors that hurt to look at. Beams of light shot down from the ship. Wherever the light touched a person, that person vanished. Watched 3 of his students disappear. He watched the school security guard disappear. He watched the old woman who sold fish cakes outside the school gate disappear. Then the light touched him, and the world went dark. He woke up in a metal room with no doors and no windows. The walls hummed with a low sound that he could feel in his teeth. He was not alone. There were 49 other people in the room with him. Some were crying. Some were screaming. Some were hitting the walls with their fists until their knuckles bled. Sat down in a corner and began to breathe slowly. He had been a soldier once, many years ago. He had served in the Special Forces for 12 years before his wife got sick and he left the military to take care of her. After she died, he became a teacher because he did not know what else to do with himself. But the training never really left him. The first rule they taught him was simple. When everything goes wrong, stay calm and observe. So he observed. The walls were made of a metal he did not recognize. The air tasted strange, like copper and flowers mixed together. The gravity felt slightly wrong, as if he weighed a little less than he should. These small details told him something important. He was no longer on Earth. A section of the wall turned transparent and saw his first alien. It was tall, almost 3 meters, and its body seemed to be made of living crystal. Light moved through it like blood through veins. It had no face that could recognize, but he felt it looking at him, studying him, the way a scientist might study an insect. The crystal being spoke, and somehow understood the words even though they were not in any human language. Specimens collected, 47 viable, 3 damaged during transport, beginning initial assessment. A device floated into the room. It looked like a metal eye with too many lenses. It moved from person to person, scanning them with beams of blue light. When it reached, it stopped for a long moment. Then it moved on. The crystal being tilted its head. It said, apparently speaking to someone could not see, "Come look at this one." Another crystal being entered through a door that appeared in the wall. This one was smaller, darker, with veins of red light instead of white. It studied the floating device's readings. Interesting, said. His stress hormones are minimal, heart rate steady, no signs of panic response. Defective perhaps. No, the scans show normal brain function. He is simply calm. The 2 beings looked at, he looked back at them. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply watched them the way they were watching him. "What is your name, creature?" asked. He replied, "What is yours?" Made a sound that might have been surprise. "I am Senior Harvester of the Galactic Supremacy. You are now property of the Arena of Eternity. Do you understand what that means?" "No." "It means you will fight, you will suffer, and you will die for the entertainment of beings greater than you can imagine." Nodded slowly. "I see. Is there water? I am thirsty." Stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was an ugly sound like glass scraping against stone. "Give the creature water," he told his companion. "This one might last longer than the others, perhaps even a full minute in the first trial." Over the next several days, learned more about his situation. The Galactic Supremacy was an empire that stretched across thousands of star systems. They had ruled for 10,000 years, conquering every species they encountered. Most conquered peoples were used as slaves. But the strongest, the fastest, The most dangerous were sent to the arena of eternity. The arena was their greatest entertainment. Gladiators from across the galaxy fought against something called the Architect's Trials. These were challenges designed to test every possible limit of body and mind. No gladiator had ever survived all 7 trials. The arena masters kept count of the dead. The number had 17 digits. The other humans in the cell were terrified. Some had given up already, sitting in corners with empty eyes. Others were angry, shouting threats at the walls and promising revenge they could never deliver. A few tried to plan escapes that everyone knew were impossible. Did none of these things. He talked to the others. He learned their names. He listened to their stories. There was a trauma surgeon who had been taken from her hospital in the middle of an operation. Her hands still had her patient's blood on them when the light took her. There was a construction worker with arms like tree trunks and a gentle voice. There was a university student who could not stop shaking. There were teachers and farmers and office workers and children. 50 ordinary people stolen from their ordinary lives. Memorized every face and every name. He did not know why. It simply felt important. On the 5th day, returned. The wall turned transparent and his crystal body glowed with excitement. "The arena masters have reviewed the specimens," he announced. "Most of you will be used for the preliminary games, simple executions to warm up the crowd, but one of you has been selected for the main event." He pointed at the human who does not fear. The arena masters wish to see how long your calm will last when you face the maze of whispers. 2 floating machines entered the cell and grabbed arms. They began to pull him toward a door that had appeared in the wall. Before he passed through, he turned to look at the other prisoners. "Watch carefully," he said to them. "Watch everything they show you, learn." Then he was gone. Stared at the door for a long time after it closed. She did not understand what meant. How could watching help them? They were prisoners. They were going to die. There was nothing to learn except how to suffer. But she found herself thinking about his words. She found herself paying attention to the guards, to the routines, to the small details of their prison. She did not know why. She only knew that the strange calm man had asked her to watch. So she watched. Across the galaxy, in a coliseum that orbited a dying star, billions of beings prepared to watch another gladiator die. They had seen it countless times before. They expected nothing different. They had never met a human before. They had no idea what was coming. The arena of eternity was the size of a small moon. Saw it through the window of the transport ship, and for the first time since his capture, he felt something close to fear. The structure was impossible. It should not exist. It was a sphere of metal and light floating in the darkness of space, covered with towers and domes and landing platforms where thousands of ships came and went like insects around a hive. A dying red star burned behind it, making the whole thing glow like something from a nightmare. "Beautiful, is it not?" said. He was standing beside, watching his reaction with obvious pleasure. The greatest achievement of the supremacy, 10,000 years of entertainment, 10,000 years of death, and you, little human, will add your bones to its collection. Said nothing. He was too busy observing. The transport ship docked at one of the lower platforms. Guards came to collect him, tall creatures with gray skin and too many arms. They did not speak. They simply grabbed him and dragged him through endless corridors of dark metal until they reached a large chamber filled with other prisoners. These were not humans. Counted 12 beings in the room, each one stranger than the last. There was a creature with 4 arms and skin like old leather, covered in ritual scars. There was something that looked like a giant insect, its body clicking and buzzing with constant motion. There was a being made of living shadow, and one that seemed to be mostly teeth, and one that floated in a bubble of green liquid. They all turned to look at him when he entered, and they all made the same expression: contempt. "What is this?" the 4-armed creature growled. Its voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "They sent us a snack for the first trial." The insect creature made a sound like laughter. "The arena masters grow lazy. This thing has no claws, no venom, no armor. It will not survive the first minute." Found an empty corner and sat down. He did not respond to their insults. He simply watched them the way he had watched everything else since his capture. He noticed how the four-armed creature favored its left side, suggesting an old injury. He noticed how the insect creature's wings twitched when it was nervous. He noticed how the shadow being avoided the light from the ceiling. Small details, probably useless, but he collected them anyway. A screen appeared on one of the walls, showing an image of the arena's interior. It was a vast open space, like a stadium but 1,000 times larger. The stands were filled with countless beings of every shape and size, all watching, all waiting. The noise of the crowd was so loud that could feel it vibrating through the floor. "Welcome, honored guests, to the 472nd cycle of the Arena of Eternity." The announcement echoed through the preparation chamber. The other gladiators straightened up, checking their weapons, preparing themselves for what was coming. "Today's first trial is the Maze of Whispers." The insect creature made a worried clicking sound. The four-armed being cursed in a language did not understand. Even the shadow creature seemed to shrink away from the announcement. Raised his hand. One of the guards looked at him with what might have been surprise. "What do you want, human?" "What is the Maze of Whispers?" The guard laughed. "You do not know? Good. The surprise will make your death more entertaining." The other gladiators were talking among themselves now, their earlier contempt replaced by something closer to genuine fear. "I lost 3 hive sisters to the maze," the insect creature said. "It finds your deepest fears and makes them real. You cannot fight what is not there. You cannot kill what exists only in your mind." "I saw a berserker tear out his own eyes in the maze," the four-armed creature added. He was trying to stop seeing his dead mate walking toward him. The screaming lasted for hours. Listened carefully. He was beginning to understand the nature of this trial. "How long does it last?" he asked. "Until you die or go mad," the guard said. "Most do both." The gates opened. One by one, the gladiators were called forward to enter the maze. The four-armed creature went first, roaring a war cry as he charged into the darkness. The insect creature followed, its wings buzzing with nervous energy. The others went after them, each one armed with weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. Was called last. He walked to the gate and stopped. On the ground near his feet, he saw a small stone about the size of his thumb. He picked it up and held it in his hand. "What are you doing?" the guard demanded. "Taking this with me," said. "A stone. What good will a stone do against the maze?" Did not answer. He simply walked through the gate and into the darkness. The Maze of Whispers was not like any maze he had ever imagined. The walls were made of something that was not quite solid, shifting and changing whenever he tried to focus on them. The floor beneath his feet felt like walking on water, and the whispers were everywhere. They came from all directions at once, speaking in voices he recognized. His mother, his father, his wife. The voice of his dead wife said, "Why did you let me die?" He felt his heart clench. The voice was perfect. It was exactly how it sounded. For a moment, he wanted nothing more than to follow that voice, to find her, to hold her one more time. But he did not move. Instead, he squeezed the stone in his hand. He focused on its weight, its texture, its reality. The stone was real. The stone was solid. The stone did not lie. "You are not," he said quietly, "is dead. I held her hand when she died. I watched them burn her body. You are a trick, a very good trick, but still just a trick." The voice changed. It became angry. It became his father's voice, telling him he was worthless. It became his drill sergeant's voice, screaming that he would never be good enough. It became the voices of everyone who had ever doubted him, ever hurt him, ever made him feel small. kept walking. He squeezed the stone. He counted his breaths. He put one foot in front of the other. The maze threw everything it had at him. It showed him his students being killed. It showed him his country burning. It showed him himself as an old man, alone and forgotten, dying in a dirty room with no one to remember his name. He kept walking. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time had no meaning in the maze, lost track of everything except the stone in his hand and the ground beneath his feet. He did not fight the visions. He did not try to destroy them or argue with them or prove them wrong. He simply accepted that they were there and kept moving forward. Somewhere behind him, he heard screaming. The other gladiators were dying. He kept walking. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, he saw light ahead. Real light. Not the false light of the maze's illusions, but actual, genuine light from the exit gate. He walked through it and found himself standing in the arena's central chamber. The crowd was silent. Every being in the stands was staring at him with expressions he could not read. A guard approached him, looking confused. "You survived," the guard said. "You are the only one. The others are all dead or broken." Nodded, he was tired. His legs felt like they were made of lead. His head hurt from the hours of psychological assault, but he was alive. "Is there somewhere I can get water?" he asked. "I am very thirsty." The guard did not answer. It was too busy staring at the small stone still clutched in his hand. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers watched the replay of the human walking calmly through the maze of whispers. They watched him ignore terrors that had broken the minds of legendary warriors. They watched him emerge from the exit gate, tired but unbroken, asking for water as if he had just finished a long walk in the park. For the first time in 300 cycles, the arena of eternity did not know what to do with a survivor. And in the prison cell on the Harvester ship, watched the broadcast with tears running down her face. She did not understand how had done it, but she was beginning to understand what he had meant. Watch carefully, learn. She was learning. News of the human spread across the supremacy like fire through dry grass. Within hours of his survival, became the most talked about gladiator in 10 generations. Every news channel, every social platform, every corner of the galactic network was filled with discussions about the strange creature from the backwater planet who had walked through the maze of whispers without breaking. The arena masters were delighted. Viewership numbers had increased by 400%. Advertising revenue was at an all-time high. They immediately scheduled for the next 3 trials, pushing aside other gladiators who had been waiting for their chance to die. They did not care if he survived. They only cared that people watched. The second trial was called the Pit of Fangs. It was a circular chamber, 50 meters across, with walls too smooth to climb. The floor was covered with serpents. There were hundreds of them, each one as long as a car and as thick as a man's leg. Their scales were black and shiny like oil. Their fangs dripped with a venom that could dissolve metal. Previous gladiators had tried to fight the serpents. They had tried to run. They had tried to climb. None of them had succeeded. The pit was designed to be unbeatable. Stood at the edge and watched. For 1 hour he did nothing but observe. He watched how the serpents moved. He watched how they hunted. He watched how they responded to sound and movement and heat. The crowd grew restless. The arena masters grew confused, but kept watching. Then he understood. The serpents did not attack randomly. They followed a pattern. They were pack hunters, working together in groups of 5 or 6, taking turns to rest while others hunted, and they had a rhythm to their movements. Every 30 seconds, there was a moment when all the serpents in a section of the pit were either resting or moving away. A gap small, barely visible, but there. Stepped into the pit. He moved slowly and carefully, timing each step to the rhythm of the serpents. When they moved left, he moved right. When they rested, he walked. When they hunted, he stood still and let them pass around him like water around a stone. It took 4 hours to cross 50 meters. When he reached the exit gate, he had a single scratch on his ankle from a young serpent that had not yet learned the pattern. The crowd erupted with a sound he had never heard before. It took him a moment to realize they were cheering. The arena masters were less pleased. Viewership was good, but the human was making their trials look weak. They needed him to suffer. They needed him to struggle. They needed the audience to see that the Supremacy's entertainment was still the greatest in the galaxy. They sent him to the third trial immediately. The burning fields was a landscape of death. The ground was made of volcanic glass that could cut through boots like paper. Geysers of superheated plasma erupted randomly across the terrain. The air itself was so hot that it could cook flesh in seconds. Previous gladiators had tried to run through it as fast as possible. Some made it halfway before the plasma caught them. Most did not make it at all. Stood at the starting point and felt the heat wash over him like a wave. His skin began to burn almost immediately. Running was not an option. The field was too large, the geysers too unpredictable. So he did something no gladiator had ever done before. He started digging. The volcanic glass was sharp, but it was also brittle. Using a piece of metal from his boot, broke through the surface and found that the ground beneath was cooler. Not cool, but survivable. He dug down until he was below the worst of the heat, then began to tunnel forward. It was slow work, painful work. His hands bled. His lungs burned from the hot air. But underground, he could feel the vibrations of the geysers before they erupted. He could sense which areas were safe and which were death traps. He tunneled for 2 days. When he emerged at the exit, he was covered in ash and blood. His clothes were ruined. His hands were wrapped in torn pieces of his shirt to protect the raw flesh underneath. But he was alive. The crowd did not cheer this time. They were too shocked. 2 days. No gladiator had ever survived in the burning fields for more than 6 hours. The fourth trial was different. The logic tomb was a chamber filled with puzzles, mathematical equations, pattern recognition tests, logic problems that required the solver to think in ways that most beings could not imagine. For each correct answer, a door opened leading deeper into the tomb. For each wrong answer, the chamber filled with disintegration energy. The previous record was 12 puzzles solved before failure. Solved 47. The problem started simple and grew increasingly complex, but had been a physics teacher for 15 years. He had spent his life taking complicated ideas and breaking them down into simple parts. The alien puzzles were strange, but they followed rules, and rules could be learned. By the 20th puzzle, he began to see patterns in how the architect designed its challenges. By the 30th, he was solving them almost automatically. By the 40th, he was actually enjoying himself. Then he reached puzzle 48. He read the problem 3 times, then he laughed. "There is an error," he said out loud, knowing the arena masters were listening. "The question contradicts itself. According to your own rules, there is no valid answer." Silence. "Check it yourselves," continued. "Variable 3 cannot be both positive and negative simultaneously within the constraints you have defined. The puzzle is broken." More silence, then slowly a door opened. The arena masters had been forced to admit that their perfect trial was flawed. They had no choice but to let him pass. Back on the harvester ships had gathered the other human prisoners around the viewing screen. They watched every trial. They studied every moment, and slowly they began to understand what was showing them. "He is not stronger than the aliens," explained to the others. "He is not faster or tougher or smarter, but he thinks differently. He does not try to beat the trials. He tries to understand them. He looks for the weaknesses, the assumptions, the things the designers did not expect." "But what good does that do us?" asked. "We are not in the arena, we are stuck here." Smiled. It was the first time she had smiled since her capture. The arena is not the only thing with weaknesses, she said. This ship has rules too. Guards have patterns. Systems have assumptions. If can find the flaws in trials designed to kill the deadliest warriors in the galaxy, we can find the flaws in a prison ship. The other prisoners looked at each other. Hope was a dangerous thing. It could make you take risks. It could get you killed. But it could also make you try. What do we do? Asked. We watch, said. We learn, we wait. And when the time is right, we act. In the arena was being taken to a special medical bay. The arena masters wanted to study him. They wanted to understand how a creature with no natural weapons, no special abilities, no evolutionary advantages could survive trials that had killed hundreds of superior beings. They ran tests, they asked questions, they examined every part of his body and mind. But they never found what they were looking for. Because the secret was not in his body. It was not in his genes or his brain chemistry or his physical abilities. The secret was something the Supremacy had never encountered before. The secret was that humans were too stubborn to know when they were supposed to die. The High Council of the Galactic Supremacy had not gathered in full assembly for over a century. They were the 12 most powerful beings in the known universe. Each one represented a founding species of the Supremacy. Each one commanded fleets of ships, armies of soldiers, and resources beyond human comprehension. They had crushed rebellions, conquered star systems, and ruled their empire with absolute authority for 10,000 years. And now they were gathered in a chamber at the heart of the arena of eternity to look at a single human. Stood in the center of the room, surrounded by creatures that could destroy his entire planet with a thought. He was still wearing the torn, ash-covered clothes from the burning fields. His hands were still bandaged. He had not been given food or water for 2 days. But he stood straight, and his eyes were calm. "You are impossible," said the first council member. It was a being of pure energy, contained in a shell of crystal and metal. Its voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Our scientists have analyzed your biology. You have no special adaptations, no unique abilities. Your species is unremarkable in every measurable way. Yet you have survived 4 trials that have killed warriors from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy," said another council member. This one was a massive creature covered in armored plates, with 6 eyes that glowed red in the dim light. "Explain yourself." Considered the question carefully. "May I tell you a story?" he asked. The council members looked at each other. This was not the response they expected. Prisoners usually begged for mercy, or shouted defiance, or simply collapsed in terror. None of them had ever asked to tell a story. "Speak," the energy being commanded. Nodded. "My grandfather was born in Korea in 1935, he began. When he was 15 years old, war came to his country. Not war like you understand it. We did not have ships that could fly between stars or weapons that could destroy planets. We only had guns and bombs and men who were willing to die for land that was not worth fighting over." The council members listened in silence. They had heard many stories from many species, but there was something in the human's voice that made them pay attention. "My grandfather lost everything in that war. His parents, his home, his village. He walked for 300 kilometers through snow and mountains with nothing but the clothes on his back and a handful of rice. He should have died 100 times, but he did not." Paused. "When I asked him how he survived, he told me something I never forgot. He said, 'I did not survive because I was strong. I survived because I refused to let the universe decide when I would stop.'" The armored creature shifted impatiently. "A touching story, but what does it have to do with your survival in our trials?" "Everything," said. "You see, you made a mistake, a fundamental error in how you designed your arena." "Impossible," a third council member said. This one was a collective intelligence, millions of tiny organisms working together as a single mind. The arena has been perfected over 10,000 years. Every flaw has been identified and corrected. No, said. You identified every flaw that you could imagine, but you could not imagine flaws that exist outside your understanding. He stepped forward. The guards raised their weapons, but the council waved them back. They wanted to hear this. Your trials are designed to test warriors, continued. You take the strongest, fastest, deadliest creatures from every world you conquer. You put them in situations where they must fight, or run, or use their natural abilities to survive. And when those abilities are not enough, they die. This is the purpose of the arena, the energy being said, to find the ultimate warrior, the perfect specimen. But that is your mistake. You are looking for warriors. You are testing for strength and speed and power. You never considered that there might be a different kind of survival. Held up his bandaged hands. I am not a warrior. I have no claws or fangs or venom. I cannot run faster than your predators or lift more than your giants. But I survived because I did not try to beat your trials. I tried to solve them. Explain, the collective intelligence demanded. Your maze of whispers attacks the mind with fear, but fear is only dangerous if you try to fight it or run from it. I did neither. I accepted that the fear was there and kept walking. Your pit of fangs is designed to overwhelm with numbers, but I watched long enough to find the pattern in the chaos. Your burning fields are meant to force a choice between speed and death, but I found a third option that your designers never considered. Your logic tomb tests intelligence in ways you understand. But I found an error in your own logic. He looked directly at the energy being, meeting its gaze without flinching. Every trial you built assumes that the gladiator will try to overcome it through strength or speed or power. You never designed for someone who would simply refuse to play by your rules. The chamber was silent. Then, from the shadows at the far end of the room, something moved. It was not a creature. It was a machine. A massive construct of metal and light that seemed to grow out of the walls themselves. Its surface was covered with symbols that hurt to look at, and its voice was like 1,000 computers speaking in perfect harmony. I am the architect, it said. I have designed every trial in this arena for 9,847 cycles. I have studied every species, every adaptation, every strategy. I have created challenges that no organic being should be able to overcome. It moved closer too. Its sensors scanned him from every angle. You are correct, human. I did not design for you. I did not design for a species that would rather dig through volcanic rock for 2 days than admit defeat. I did not design for a mind that can watch its deepest fears and simply accept them. I did not design for a creature too stubborn to die when it is supposed to. Then your design has a flaw, said. Yes, the architect agreed. It does, and I find this fascinating. It turned to address the council. The final 3 trials have never been reached. They were created as theoretical exercises, challenges so difficult that no being could ever face them. But this human has forced us to activate them. The council members murmured among themselves. This was unprecedented. I will modify the remaining trials, the architect continued. I will design them specifically to counter human psychology, to exploit human weaknesses, to break this creature in ways that will prove once and for all that the supremacy's entertainment is supreme. It looked back at. You have shown me something I have never seen before, human. A new type of challenge, a new type of opponent. For this, I am grateful. I will make your death the most memorable in arena history. Smiled. It was a small smile, tired and worn at the edges, but it reached his eyes. Good, he said. I was getting bored. The council members stared at him. The guards stared at him. Even the architect seemed to pause its processing for a moment. You are not afraid, the architect observed. I am terrified, admitted. But my grandfather taught me something else along with his story. He taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and moving forward anyway. He looked around the chamber at the most powerful beings in the galaxy. You have ruled for 10,000 years by making everyone afraid of you. You have conquered 1,000 worlds by showing them that resistance is pointless. But you have never faced a species that learned to live with fear. That learned to carry it, to work with it, to make it a companion instead of an enemy. He straightened his torn clothes as best he could. Design your trials, architect. Make them as terrible as you can imagine. I will walk through them anyway. Not because I am not afraid, but because being afraid has never stopped humans from doing what needs to be done. The architect was silent for a long moment. Fascinating, it finally said. Truly fascinating. Return him to the preparation chambers. Let him rest. The final trials begin at the next cycle. As the guards led away, he looked back over his shoulder at the council. By the way, he said, my people are watching, every broadcast, every trial. Billions of beings across your empire are watching a human survive things that killed their greatest warriors. What do you think that is teaching them? The doors closed behind him before anyone could answer. But in the council chamber, for the first time in a very long time, the rulers of the galactic supremacy felt something unfamiliar in their hearts. It felt almost like worry. The fifth trial was called the Room of Everything. When stepped through the gate, he found himself standing in his old apartment in Seoul. The morning sunlight was coming through the windows. The smell of coffee filled the air, and sitting at the kitchen table, reading a newspaper with a cup of tea in her hands, was his wife. She looked up and smiled at him, and felt his heart break all over again. "Good morning," she said. "You slept late today, bad dreams." Stood frozen in the doorway. He knew this was not real. He knew it was a simulation, a trap designed by the architect to exploit his deepest desires. But knowing something and feeling it were two very different things. Stood up and walked toward him. She was exactly as he remembered, the gray in her hair, the laugh lines around her eyes, the way she tilted her head when she was worried about him. "Are you all right?" He wanted to hold her. He wanted to forget the arena, forget the trials, forget everything and just stay in this moment forever. The simulation was perfect. If he accepted it, he could live here for the rest of his life, growing old with the woman he loved, never facing another challenge. But it would be a lie. Sat down across from the simulation of his wife. He looked at her face, memorizing every detail even though he had already memorized it 1,000 times. "I need to tell you about what happened," he said, "after you died." The simulation tilted its head, confused, but it listened. For 1 hour, told his wife everything. He told her about the years of grief, about becoming a teacher because he did not know what else to do, about the alien ships and the capture and the arena. He told her about the maze of whispers and the pit of fangs and all the trials he had faced. He told her that he missed her every single day. When he was finished, he stood up. "You would be ashamed of me if I stayed here," he said. "You always told me I was too comfortable, too willing to accept things as they were. You pushed me to be better, to do more, to never give up." He walked to the door. "I love you," he said. "I will always love you, but you are not her, she is dead, and I need to keep moving." He stepped through the door and left paradise behind. The sixth trial was called the Room of Nothing. There was no light, no sound, no sensation of any kind, floated in perfect darkness, unable to feel his own body, unable to tell if his eyes were open or closed. There was nothing to fight, nothing to solve, nothing to observe. Just nothing. The trial was designed to drive humans mad through isolation. Without external stimulation, the mind turns on itself. It creates hallucinations. It loses track of time. It forgets who it is and why it exists. Had expected something like this. In the darkness, he began to recite poetry. He started with the poems he had memorized in high school, old Korean verses about mountains and rivers and the changing of seasons. When he ran out of those, he moved on to the poems his wife had loved, then the songs his mother had sung to him as a child, then the formulas and equations he had taught to his students. He organized his thoughts into categories: physics, history, literature, cooking recipes, the names and faces of everyone he had ever known. He spent what felt like days building a palace in his mind. Each room contained a different set of memories. Each hallway connected different parts of his life. He walked through this palace over and over, adding details, fixing errors, making it more complete. And he planned. He thought about and the other prisoners. He thought about the harvester ships and the guards and the systems that kept them imprisoned. He thought about everything he had learned about the supremacy since his capture. He built a plan, step by step, piece by piece, a plan to escape, a plan to fight back, a plan that had almost no chance of working but was better than no plan at all. 14 days passed, though had no way of knowing the exact time. When the door finally opened and light flooded in, he walked out calmly and asked the guards if they had a piece of paper. He wanted to write down some ideas before he forgot them. The guards did not know what to say. The seventh trial was the architect's challenge. No one knew what it contained. No gladiator had ever reached it in all the arena's history. When stepped through the final gate, he found himself in a simple white room with no features of any kind. Sitting in the center of the room was a perfect copy of himself. "Hello," the copy said. It had his face, his voice, his mannerisms. It moved exactly as he moved. It breathed exactly as he breathed. "The final trial," the architect's voice echoed through the room, "is to defeat yourself." Looked at his copy, the copy looked back. "And if I choose not to?" asked. "Then you remain here forever." Nodded slowly. He walked to the center of the room and sat down across from his mirror image. "Then let us talk," he said. "I have time." The copy frowned. "Talk? You are supposed to fight me." "Why?" "Because I am everything you hate about yourself. Every failure, every weakness, every mistake. I am the voice in your head that tells you that you are not good enough, that you let your wife die, that you abandoned your students, that you are nothing but a fraud pretending to be brave." Nodded again. "Yes, you are all of those things, I know." "Then fight me, destroy me, prove that you are stronger than your own doubts." "No." The copy seemed confused. "No." "No," repeated. "You are part of me. Destroying you would mean destroying part of myself. I have spent too many years trying to silence you, to ignore you, to pretend you do not exist. It never worked. You always came back." He met the copy's eyes, his own eyes. "So instead, I will do something different. I will accept you." For 72 hours talked to himself. He acknowledged every failure the copy threw at him. Yes, he had made mistakes. Yes, he had moments of cowardice. Yes, he sometimes doubted if anything he did mattered. But he also talked about the times he had succeeded, the students he had helped, the lives he had touched, the small kindnesses he had shown. He talked about his grandfather's stubborn survival and his wife's unwavering faith in him. "I am flawed," he finally said. "I am afraid and uncertain and full of doubt, but that is not something to defeat. That is something to carry. My people have a saying, fall 7 times, stand up 8. I have fallen many times. I will fall many more, but I will always stand up again." The copy stared at him for a long moment. "How can you accept imperfection?" it asked. "Because perfection is not the point," said. "Continuing is the point. Moving forward is the point. Being afraid and doing it anyway is the point." The copy was silent. "You designed these trials to break spirits," said, now speaking directly to the architect. "But you cannot break something that expects to fall. You cannot destroy a will that has already accepted its own weakness and decided to keep going anyway." The white room began to dissolve. You assumed survival meant winning, continued as the walls faded around him. But for humans, survival just means not stopping, ever, no matter what. The room vanished completely. Found himself standing in the main coliseum of the arena of eternity, under the gaze of billions. The stands were silent. The massive screens showed his face to every corner of supremacy space. No gladiator had ever walked out of that final gate. The arena masters descended from their platform, demanding that he kneel to receive his reward. Smiled. "I do not think so," he said. His voice was calm, but it carried across the entire arena. "While you were watching me, my people were watching too. Doctor and the others on the harvester ships have spent the last month learning everything I showed them. They found the patterns. They found the weaknesses. They took control of 3 vessels 2 hours ago." Alarms began screaming throughout the station. "You built an arena to break the spirits of conquered peoples," said, his image broadcasting across 1,000 worlds. "Instead, you built a classroom. You showed every slave in your empire that the mighty supremacy can be beaten, not with strength, not with power, but with patience, observation, and the refusal to give up." Across the galaxy, beings who had watched a small, fragile human survive the impossible began to remember something they had forgotten. They remembered what it felt like to hope, what it felt like to believe that change was possible. The supremacy would not fall that day. Their empire was too vast, their power too great, but cracks had appeared that would never fully heal. Seeds had been planted that would grow for generations. And former soldier, physics teacher, and the first being to ever survive the arena of eternity, simply looked at the nearest guard and asked a question. "Is there somewhere I can get some water? I am very thirsty." The guard stared at him, smiled again. "Also," he added, "I would like to see my friends now. We have a lot of work to do." Far away, on 3 captured ships heading toward the edge of supremacy space, 47 humans looked at the stars and saw not a prison but a beginning. They had learned well. And they were just getting started.